there's really nothing you could say. And if there was, they're so upset, they probably wouldn't hear them anyway. But the reason we do what we do is, like we go the extra step. Like we don't cut clothing down the back and just drape it on them because that's not how we wear our clothes. We take the time to wash the blood off their backs, clean out from under their fingernails, do things that I guarantee no one will probably ever notice. But you know that you did absolutely everything for that person and for that family to let them have a respectful, dignified moment of closure. And I think the closure part is so important. Like that's what just really sells me on funeral. A lot of people, I don't care, just throw me in the river. You really won't know the difference if we throw you in the river or we have a funeral. The funerals are for the living. That's so that families can come and have that time and have that closure. Like I remember when my cousin was killed, it seemed so unbelievable to us that was even true. And I remember my mom saying, because at one point they thought about having a closed casket with him because of injuries. And she said, if I don't see him, I'll never believe that this actually happened. So that was kind of the situation that I really held with me through that 20 years was, how would I want my family treated? Like, how would I want, if that situation happened all over again, and I was the funeral director taking care of the family at that point, how would I treat my own family? And that really is how I try to treat every single family I ever met with. Every person I ever embalmed, we can talk and yes, there's a tremendous amount of dark humor.
Sure.
But at the same time, I don't want to come across as disrespectful because, one of the signs that hung in the embalming room at the last funeral home that I was said, everyone is someone's child, parent, sibling, spouse, or friend, and you treat them with the respect that they deserve. And I really did try to do that, and take care of families. Like when my grandfather passed away, I went and picked him up, brought him back and embalmed him. And somebody said, how do you, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't want anybody else to do it. Like, I want to be the one that, that's the last thing I could do for him. And I really do feel like I try to treat every single case with that same respect.
That's beautiful. What about, like, have you ever had a case where you knew that this person, let's just say, was a bad person, like that murdered somebody, or did you know backstory on these people, or did you try to not really dive into that?
Sometimes the embalming would happen before we met with the family. And then sometimes we'd meet with the family. And then, like, if someone was at the medical examiner, it may be a day or two. So we already then knew, like, I already knew the backstory and the situation going in. And then sometimes not. And sometimes then you hear the backstory and you're like, wow, but as far as treatment, that really didn't matter.
Sure.
Because again, it's still somebody's son or spouse or, or whatever. So in that regard, it didn't change anything. It didn't change the process.
You kept it emotionally professional. I don't know, like a very thoughtful approach to remaining professional. And you couldn't, like, what are you going to do? Like, oh, I'm not going to embalm him fully because he's a jerk.
I'm only giving him half the fluid.
Yeah.
No.
All right, I do have another question, and respectfully, but you get someone that comes in that's on the bit of the larger side, which we tend to be in West Virginia, and we love those people too, and everyone's fantastic. But is there anything that comes to mind to you about that specifically on how you handle that or a protocol?
There's a lot of logistical issues. I mean, it just becomes a point, embalming. There were times that I would have someone like that would be morbidly obese, and I would have to stand on a milk crate just because they were so high up off the table. Even if I lowered the table, I still had to, the work that I had to do all of a sudden was that much higher.
Sure.
The other thing, because I worked at a funeral home that had a crematorium, with cremations, when we would get up over about 500 pounds, 500 plus, one thing that would happen is the crematory gets very, very hot because there's less room for air to circulate around the deceased. Also, fat renders down. And so when you have a crematorium, there's like a tray at the bottom, and that's what you rake the ashes into. My job when I first started, like the lower tier, this is going to be your job to deal with, was I would have to sit and watch the temperature on the crematorium to make sure that it didn't get up too high. And also, sometimes the fat would render down and it would run out where the door for the tray was. And because it was so hot, it would set the floor tiles on fire. So I had to sit there with a fire extinguisher and make sure that the floor didn't catch on fire if any of the grease ran out of the crematory.
What? Who knew this was a thing?
It's a thing.
Wow.